Hi there, it's Ron Gula from Gula Tech Adventures, and in this VC 101 video, we're going to talk about CEO communication. Now, this is a sensitive topic, right? If you're a founder of a tech startup, you might be thinking, hey, I'm the best communicator in the world. Everybody listens to me. Well, you might be living in a bubble. You might be living in a bubble because no one's going to tell you that, you're not saying the right thing or doing the right thing because you're the CEO. It's a really tough balance to do that. And most of the CEOs that I've worked with, and I've had the chance to work with, almost several hundred CEOs that are out there just over my time at Gula Tech Adventures, both as direct investments and informal advisory stuff, and just people who pitch and give us updates and that sort of thing. And the one thing I've seen about successful CEOs, there's a lot of luck, but there's also a lot of strategy being a successful CEO. But one of the things that really separates the people who do really well and just enjoy the job is their ability to consistently communicate what the mission is to anybody that they're listening to. They almost have like a magical ability to talk to a brand new employee, to an investor, to a board member in almost the same way. And this is actually something that's really difficult for a lot of young CEOs. They might say something completely different to a new employee than they would to be maybe somebody from the media. And if you're doing that, you're diluting your message. If you have a vision, you should be able to consistently show that vision and tell that to many, many different people. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some tools that you can use to kind of measure, if you're being effective or not, and also some examples of things to do. So the first thing that you should realize is that you live in sort of two worlds. You have sort of your inner world of trusted advisors. They could be your executive leadership team. They could be your inner circle, people who are in the tent, so to speak. And then you have the people on the outside of that. And you might think that employees are different than customers and different than the media, than competitors, than maybe the government. Like I do a lot of cyber investing, so we tend to deal a lot with the U.S. and state governments for a variety of things. My point is you might think that all those people are different and you need to use different words and terms talking to them, but not really. You might also think that what you do on the inside of that tent, the things you share with your other co-founders might be private. But the reality is it's not. You're always constantly moving data and information back and forth. And as you do that, you need to do it in a clear and concise manner. Now, what kind of information do you want to share between those two worlds? I like to talk about things in the terms of the 5-slide pitch deck, right? What does your company do? How do you do it? What do you solve, right? How do you solve it, right? Why are you good at what you're doing, right? Some proof that what you're doing. What's the plan? What's the plan with the money? What's the plan with the business? And finally, what does success look like? So if you have those 5 questions, the real question is why does the rest of the world not know about these 5 things that you've done? So you might be sitting there going, oh yeah, I've solved all these things. Whether you're doing a new AI company, a new healthcare product, whatever, you might be like, oh, I've solved all this. Why don't I have any customers? Why is it hard to hire employees? Why did that employee just leave to go work for this other startup? We're 5 times better than they are. Well, it might be because you're not communicating that vision to the rest of the world accordingly. So I'll give you a couple of things to you could look at. One, what does your website say? We get pitches a lot at Gula Tech Adventures where the person will say, hey, we do X, Y, and Z. We can decrypt quantum communications malware, right? Great. Okay, awesome. Your website says you're a cybersecurity company. It's not consistent with what you say you do. Now, there's some style into saying how vague or how specific you want to be from a marketing point of view. But if your website doesn't say what you do and it doesn't say what problem you solve and how you solve it, or you have to dig for it, or if it's not the main thing on the web, it's not really going to be that useful for your vision. So then the question is how do you as a CEO go and get that out there? And this is where culture comes in. When you go and you talk to the people who do the website, how do you treat them? Are you going to treat them with respect? Are you going to say, hey, I really want to say this? Are you now thinking that you're micromanaging? And this is something I've seen a lot of junior CEOs. They say, well, I don't want to put words in their mouth. I want to let them do their job. Well, it's one thing to let somebody do their job, and it's another thing to be like, look, this is your vision, this is the main stuff, and you need to be able to send that out accordingly. Now, I've seen a lot of people get into issues with this, but let's talk about another sort of outwardly facing communication thing. Does your sales team pitch your company the same way you do? And if they don't, why? And this is something, again, people are really, maybe they're a junior CEO and they brought in somebody from the industry who's got, 15 years of selling products and they know all their contacts and whatever. But the reality is, if the salespeople are out selling your company different than your vision, you need to rectify that. You need to actually have a consistent message when the salespeople are out there doing that. And I hear a lot of excuses. Oh, this is a pitch for the federal market. This is the pitch for the healthcare market. This is the pitch for the international market. That sort of thing. The reality is a lot of times a salesperson is going to do their job and try to get you a sale, but they might win the battle or lose the war. And trying to make sure that the team is consistent on that is another way to engage them. Now, how do you engage that? I've had a lot of success with pitch competitions, right? It's if you ever seen the videos on TV where somebody tells the same joke and a different comedian tells the same joke, and it's the same joke, but how they tell it gets different and different. It's really interesting to see the same people in the company pitch the company to the company and get the feedback on that. And it's a great way to build culture and get some transparency there. Now, this one might be a little bit too more personal. Does your product actually do what you say it does? And I actually have a lot of people who've pitched us and said, oh, our vision's XYZ, we solve this. But then you look at the product and it's some feature buried deep in there. It's not front and center. And that's usually a big red flag for us because people don't use 90% of the features of the software they bought to begin with. So if the thing you're building your company on is buried in a product somewhere, guess what? People aren't going to use that very much. So, and this, again, is another breakdown. Maybe as CEO, you need to go and sit with your engineering team, your CTO, your technical co-founder, whatever it is, and really get that roadmap to be focused on what the vision of the company is. Again, you need to be consistent. We already talked about the website, the sales, and the product. Well, now it gets even a little bit more personal. How does HR pitch your company? Now, if you're small, you probably are the HR department. Maybe you have a certain co-founder. Every new hire is somebody that the whole team is involved in. But when you get past 10 people, when you get past 15 people, who's given the vision of the company? And I've actually seen this happen a number of times, especially when you go from 15 people to 50 people. Usually the first time you set an HR department up, onboarding somebody, giving them the history of the company, making sure that they're able to do that pitch and understand why they're there is a tough thing to do. And to correct that, it's really interesting. So again, when I was CEO at Tenable, I tried to meet, I want to go to as many of the new hire meetings as possible, give them the vision of the company. If I couldn't do it, my co-founders, Jack and Renaud, did that. And that's really important. And I've seen a lot of these traits in a lot of our CEOs at Gula Tech, where they meet every employee, they meet every new hire, and they're trying to be out there. But again, if they're not consistent, if they speak to engineers a little bit different than the marketing people, a little bit different than maybe the people in accounting and payroll, then it's going to be a watered down message. Again, you want to have a consistent message. And I think if you're new to this type of business, many of your leads when you start a company come from people you know. That's how you hire people. That's how you get information about the industry. There's probably a competitor in your neighborhood. And this is an interesting time to make sure everybody's consistent. Now, another form of outward communication that you could have as your company is your investors. And this is a difficult thing for me to say because I will tell you that I pitch some of the companies we invest in a little bit different than the CEOs do. And I try to be consistent. I try to be really good. Sometimes I'm just not going to regurgitate the marketing stuff. But for the most part, if you're a founder and you have investors, you want to make sure that those investors, as they're talking to other investors, as they're talking to potential customers, in our case, chief information security officers, that type of stuff, you want to make sure that they're on message. And sometimes on message might even be up to date, especially if you've got different products that are coming out, different versions that are being released, and you want to make sure that those folks are on board. I've seen a lot of CEOs not pay any attention to their board members and their investors. And guess what? The board members and investors can go off message really, really easy and dilute your message as a founder. And it actually becomes an undermining thing. So you really want to make sure that there's a consistent conversation, that you're keeping those folks involved. Now, those are the big sort of things as far as keeping your vision as a founder consistent with a lot of different constituents that are out there. What about internal communications? If you ever worked at a large public company, you've probably heard of corporate comms, internal comms, HR, that type of thing. But the reality is you need to think, even if you're a 15-person company, a 50-person company, you need to think about how you communicate to your employees, because it's pretty easy to mess up some basic business communications. Chances are, if you're growing the company, you're 5 people, 15 people, you grow to 50 people, you're probably going to go through some business tribulations. Maybe you're going to buy another company. Maybe you're going to merge. Maybe you're going to hire a new person to run a new division. Maybe you have to change the name of your company. Maybe you're going through a lawsuit and maybe there's a newspaper article. How do you communicate to your company in a manner that's consistent? Well, I really like to talk about 2 different strategies. One, you need to sit with that inner circle, the people inside that tent, and figure out, what is the message? What are you going to say? What are you not going to say? And this is really an interesting thing. You need to get feedback from people. What are some of those issues? I've always been surprised, as much as I'm aware as a CEO of certain things, that you might miss an aspect to how something might look like from a diversity, equity, and inclusion point of view, or from a competitor's point of view, or from the government's point of view. So it's important to get some information from your board of advisors, your inner circle. But the second thing is that when you're going to communicate this message, you really want to do it in 2 layers. You want to have the formal statement that comes from you, the CEO, the founder, which could be a video, public address, a Zoom. It could be a long message that gets emailed, that goes on Slack. And there's debates with, do you want to do that, right? If you have something that's an internal document, that could get leaked if it's there. But right now, let's focus on just being consistent. But the second thing you want to do is you want to enable your executive leadership team, your directors, to have another secondary conversation with your employees. And this is where you don't want to just let them go make up their own message. And I talk to a lot of CEOs who are going through a lot of changes in communications. Like, look, you literally have to spoon feed them talking points. You have to, basically discuss with them, these are the things for more detail if you want to use and reference. Because if you don't, they're going to make it up. And, if I replace, the terms, mergers and acquisition with lawsuit, or we had to terminate somebody for a certain reason, you don't want somebody making up a reason for why somebody went, or let a rumor creep into those kind of things. So having that sort of positive control over those type of communications, which can be both for good events and minor event, is very, very important. Now, the last thing I'm going to say is for corporate communications is, or for CEO communications, is to basically say, have fun and be yourself. If you see Elon Musk out there, Jeff Bezos, all these people on doing media, big talks, and if that's your goal, there's a lot of ways to be famous. You don't have to be a CEO to be famous. And there's plenty more successful CEOs who are focused on their business and not their image. So don't make that kind of statement. Every time you're talking to, a town hall for your employees or a customer is not a moment for you to be thinking about, oh, this would be a tweet or a good thing out there. What I really like to tell CEOs is to try to look for peers in your area and see how they communicate. Ask how they communicate with their team. Ask how they do that. You got to find your own spot and your own space to be about that. All right, if you have comments on CEO communication, leave them on this video here. Give us a like if this was helpful. If you want to see other videos in the VC 101 series, drop us a note here or on LinkedIn. I'm Ron Gula. I hope everybody out there as a CEO does a great job communicating, and enjoy this video. Have a great day.